My name is Glen Paulson. I'm 57 years old, and I paid for a family that didn't save me a chair at my grandson's 9th birthday. It was a Saturday in June. I'd been waiting since morning for Phoebe to text me the time. She'd mentioned the party 2 weeks before, something vague about the Whitmore's lake house, late afternoon. I told her I'd bring Wyatt's gift and a case of root beer because the kid has never once turned down root beer. She said great. That was the whole conversation. By 2 o'clock I hadn't heard anything. I texted Troy, thumbs up. That's what my son sends now when he wants to say got the message without actually saying anything. At 3:15 I opened Facebook because that's where I go to see pictures of my grandkids. That's the only reason I have the app. Jean set it up for me in 2019, and I've never once posted anything. I just scroll until I see Wyatt and Harper. The photo loaded. Long table on the Whitmore's back deck, the one that faces out over the lake. Edison string lights, paper streamers. A banner running the length of the railing. Happy 9th yacht. Conrad Whitmore in the center seat. A paper birthday hat on his head. The silver and blue kind with the elastic string under the chin. Written on the hat in marker, world's best grandpa. Wyatt on his lap, mid-law, eyes closed, one fist raised like he'd just won something. Phoebe had posted it 4 minutes earlier. The caption said, birthday boy with his favorite grandpa. I counted the chairs, 11. I counted them again because the string lights made it hard to see the far end. 11 chairs, 11 people, not one empty. Nobody forgot to invite me. I want to be clear about that because I spent the first hour trying to convince myself otherwise. But Phoebe had planned this party. She'd reserved a party tent. She'd ordered a custom cake from the dairy bar off Route 40. She'd texted me 2 weeks before and described enough detail that I had no reason to think I wasn't coming. And then somebody made a final head count and came up with a number, and that number had 11 in it, and 11 was enough. I drove over anyway. I had Wyatt's gift in the truck, a fishing rod combo I'd spent 2 Saturdays picking out, the kind with the monofilament already spooled in a small tackle box. Wyatt had been asking since Easter when I could take him to the reservoir. The answer was going to be soon. I'd told him soon twice. I drove 40 minutes to the lake house, with the rod sticking up behind the seat. Troy answered the door. He had a paper plate in one hand, and the look of a man who was deciding in real time what face to make. Dad. He looked behind me at the truck. Phoebe thought she told you the time. She didn't. He stepped back and I came in. The party was mostly on the deck through the glass doors. I could hear it, kids' voices, somebody's country station playing at deck music volume. I could see the table from the entryway. I stopped at the gallery wall. The Whitmores had done their entryway the same way Phoebe had done theirs at home, frames edge to edge, a whole wall of it. I'd stood at that wall before. There was a picture I remembered from 2 summers back, me and Wyatt at Buckeye Lake, him holding up a small bass with both hands, squinting into the sun, and me behind him with my hand on his shoulder and a smile I don't usually make in photographs. Phoebe had asked for a copy, and I'd emailed it to her, and she'd framed it. It wasn't there. In its place, Conrad teaching Wyatt to cast off a dock I didn't recognize. Conrad and Harper in matching Christmas sweaters. A professional portrait, the whole Whitmore family, ski mountain behind them, everyone in coordinated navy blue. There were 14 frames on that wall. I counted because counting is what I do when I need to keep my hands steady. None of them had me in them. Wyatt came through the glass door at a run, stopped when he saw me. Glen, he said it warm. He was happy to see me. He held out his hand for a fist bump the way I'd taught him when he was 4. Did you bring it? I set the rod case down on the bench by the door. He was already pulling at the zipper. You don't call me Grandpa anymore. He shrugged the easy shrug of a 9-year-old who has no idea there's a weight inside the question. Mom, says Grandpa's for Conrad's side. He'd gotten the case open. Is this the one with the reel already on it? When did she say that? I don't know. Before school. He lifted the rod out with both hands, careful the way kids are careful with things they've been waiting for. Can we go to the reservoir? Wait, it's my birthday today. Can we go next weekend? Phoebe appeared in the doorway to the deck. She smiled at me, the careful kind. Glen, you made it. Conrad's about to do the cake. I said I'd be right there. I put my hand on Wyatt's head for a second and told him the reservoir wasn't going anywhere. He was already reading the side of the tackle box. I didn't go out to the deck. I got back in my truck and drove home. There were 2 things I did when I got to the kitchen. First, I got a glass of water and drank it at the sink. Jean's herb garden is still in the window box. I've kept it alive 4 years, which is 3 years longer than I expected to. I stood there and looked at it. Then I opened my banking app. 4 recurring transfers on the screen. I'd set them up the way you set up anything that runs on its own. Once, correctly, and then you stop thinking about it. Troy had called me in the spring of 2020 when he and Phoebe bought the house on Birchwood Drive. The mortgage rate was adjustable and they'd stretched to get in, and when the rate reset the payment jumped $800. And he called me on a Tuesday morning. I told him I'd bridge it. $1,100 a month, first of the month, tagged in the memo line with the address. I never mentioned it again. The truck insurance was Troy's name on my commercial policy. His credit had been rough when he was building his business. He does HVAC installation, learned it working for me. And my policy gave him better rates. He'd been on it since 2018. I'd stopped thinking of it as a favor, and it had become just a line on my statement. $420 a month. The college fund, $800 a month into a $529 for Wyatt and Harper combined, opened the week Wyatt was born. I was in the hospital waiting room when Troy texted me the name and the weight and the time. 6:13 in the morning, 7 pounds, 11 ounces, Wyatt James. I'd written it on the back of a parking ticket. And then the one I could see without the app because it was in the drawer of my workshop desk. Phoebe's Bakery. Sugar and salt on Elm Street downtown, 800 square feet, cream and pale green, the kind of place you see in small Ohio cities, where someone has dreams and a credit card and not quite enough of either. Between 2021 and 2023, I'd written her personal checks on 9 separate occasions. $4,000 twice, $3,000 once, the rest in smaller amounts. I'd told her they were loans. She'd never once mentioned paying them back. I'd never asked. Total, a little over $22,000. I sat at the kitchen table for a while. The only light was the one over the stove. I did the arithmetic I'd been not doing for 4 years. 1,100 plus 420 plus 800. $2,320 a month, every month, for the last 4 years in some combination. Plus the bakery. Plus $20,000 toward the down payment, because they were short and I didn't want them to lose the house. Plus the wedding. I'd paid for the reception hall and the rehearsal dinner, because Jean died 9 months before the wedding, and I was still in that particular fog, where money doesn't feel real, and also you will do anything that makes your son look at you. The way Troy looked at me when I handed him the deposit check. My accountant's name is Sal Kravenko. He does my books for the company and has done my personal taxes since 2009. He charged me in venison for 2 years before his wife made him stop. I called him Sunday morning and told him I needed a number. He came by Monday evening, sat at the kitchen table, and turned the folder around. He'd typed a total at the bottom of the column and circled it twice. And 98,000, rough. Doesn't include the wedding. Your retirement should be 8 years closer than it is, he said. He took his glasses off. What are you going to do? I told him I wasn't sure yet, which was the truth of it in that moment, and also not the full truth. There was one thing I needed to know before I decided anything. I called Troy on Monday night. He picked up on the second ring. Background noise, Harper's voice somewhere, a TV. Hey Dad, about Saturday Phoebe really thought. Does Wyatt call me Glen now? Did you know that? The background noise kept going. A drawer closed on his end. Dad, don't make this into a thing. I switched the phone to my other ear. I'm asking a question. It's complicated. Conrad is just very active with the kids and Wyatt got confused, and Phoebe tried to make it simpler for him. When did it start? Last year, maybe, before school. I said okay. I told him I'd talk to him soon. He said okay. We hung up and I stood in my kitchen for a while with the phone in my hand. He hadn't asked if I was all right. He hadn't said he'd fix it. He'd said don't make this into a thing, which is what you say when the thing is already made and you're hoping nobody looks directly at it. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened the banking app. I did it in order, top to bottom, the way I work a panel. Transfer 1, Birchwood Mortgage Bridge, 1,100. Confirm. Transfer 2, truck insurance, 420. I'd handled this one properly. Called the insurance office Tuesday morning. Asked to remove Troy Paulson as a listed driver. The woman said she'd mail notice to both addresses. I said please do. The 529. I drove 40 minutes to the credit union in Marysville on Wednesday and moved the account to a custodial 529 under my name only. Same beneficiaries, same monthly contribution, different lock on the door. I sat in the parking lot and wrote a letter on a legal pad. I'd been working on it 3 days. 4 sentences is what I had when I was done. I mailed it because a letter can't be read at a red light and deleted before the next block. I told Troy the mortgage bridge and the insurance had stopped. I told him the college fund was intact and that he could call the credit union anytime, and they'd read him the balance. And I wrote one more line. I'm still Wyatt and Harper's grandfather. I'm just not your bank anymore. The letter arrived Thursday. Nobody called for 22 days. I want to tell you honestly what those weeks were like. Parts of it were hard. The first Sunday, the Sunday that should have been my other weekend Sunday with the kids and wasn't. I drove to the reservoir alone and sat in my truck in the parking lot for 40 minutes and then drove home. But most of it wasn't hard. I took a commercial contract I'd been putting off, a full HVAC retrofit at a warehouse near Hilliard. 3 weeks of real work, 8 to 6, both hands busy. I fixed the gutters on the east side of the house. I went to my sister Phyllis's on a Sunday for the first time in 2 years and sat in her kitchen and told her the whole thing flat, the way I'd describe a bad diagnostic to a customer. 11 chairs, the birthday hat, the wall. Phyllis doesn't do the soft thing. Jean loved her for exactly that, she said. They didn't forget you, Glen. They arranged around you. Every night around 9 I checked my phone. Nothing. On day 19, Phoebe posted a Facebook story. She was standing in front of a commercial space I didn't recognize. Corner unit, bigger than Elm Street. Big things coming for sugar and salt. The previous tenant's sign still in the window. She'd signed a new lease on a bigger space. In a month, where the $1,100 that had been bridging their mortgage hadn't arrived. The letter was 3 weeks old. The first of the month was 9 days out. I was under a drop ceiling at the warehouse when my phone buzzed at 8:50 in the morning. Phoebe. First contact in 22 days. Hey Glen, did something go wrong with the bank? Our payment came up short. I read it twice, put the phone in my pocket and finished the run. At noon I texted back. I sent a letter. By 2 o'clock Troy was calling. At 5:45 I called back from my driveway. He answered before it finished ringing. Dad, so Phoebe says There's no bank error, I said. I stopped it. I'm allowed to stop it. The sound he made. I've only heard it from him once before, when Jean's doctor used the word we'd been afraid of. We have a mortgage. I know. You didn't even tell me. I mailed you a letter 3 weeks ago. I paused. Did you get it? Phoebe's voice in the background. Troy put her on speaker. Glen. Her voice was controlled in the way that costs energy to maintain. I think there's been a misunderstanding. We were counting on this. I know you were. You're putting us in a very difficult position. Phoebe, I want to say one thing and I need you to hear it. The kids' college money hasn't stopped. It's in a 529 at the Marysville Credit Union with my name as custodian. Wyatt and Harper are the beneficiaries. I'm still putting in $800 a month, and I'm not touching it. The mortgage bridge and the insurance are done. The rest is between you and your lender. Silence. Harper somewhere in the background, singing to herself. You can't hold that account without our. It's my money. I opened it. My name has been on it for 9 years. You've never put a dollar in it. I let that sit. In 2022, $4,800 came out of the old savings account for a trip to Cancun. In 2023, $6,200 for the van down payment. I saw both. I never said one word about either. That is a really unfair way to. I'm not characterizing anything. I'm telling you why the account moved. Troy got the phone back. He was crying, the real kind, the kind that arrives in the voice before you're ready for it. Dad, please, these are your grandkids. I know, I said. I'm not doing anything to the grandkids. I stopped the adults from spending the grandkids' money. Those are different things. I hung up. My hands were shaking and I'm not going to pretend they weren't. Doing the right thing didn't feel good. It just felt done. Let me stop here for a second. Take a quick moment to like this video and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And I want to ask you something honest. If you were sitting where I was sitting, would you have kept that college fund running or shut it all down? Type yes if you'd have kept it. Type no if you'd have pulled everything. I read every comment on these, every single one. And I want you to keep watching, because what happened at the anniversary dinner is the part I'm still working through a year later. My sister-in-law Opal Whitmore called me on a Tuesday. First call ever between us. She didn't mention money the entire time, and I want to give her that. She talked about family, about how hard these things are, about the children and what they need. She said the word harmony. She said the phrase the bigger picture. She's good at it. She runs 3 community boards and has never once said anything that could be described as unkind out loud. Then she said that she and Conrad were having their 35th anniversary dinner the second Saturday of October at the Swan Club out on Route 23, and she did hope I'd come. I looked out my kitchen window at the gutters I'd fixed. I'd be glad to, I said. Wonderful. Genuine warmth, and it wasn't entirely calculated. I believe she meant it. I'll add you to the count. I understood what the call was. She hadn't phoned to repair anything. She'd phoned because in 3 weeks, there would be 60 people in a room, and a man who doesn't answer his phone will answer a question in front of 60 people. She was setting a table again. She just didn't know I had my own reason to sit at it. On the 14th, Troy got pulled over on Route 40 for a cracked taillight. He handed over his license and his insurance card. The card was current. His name had been off my commercial policy for 12 days. Ohio has a mandatory filing requirement for uninsured motorists and a citation that enters the public record. Troy is not running for anything. But this particular county has 22,000 people and 6 degrees of separation between any 2 of them, and the local parenting Facebook group links to the clerk's public filings every Tuesday. Phoebe texted at 11 that night. Long message. The line I remember, "You are destroying my husband's reputation over a birthday party." I typed 3 different replies, deleted all 3. What I sent was, the insurance office mailed Troy a cancellation notice on the 1st. It would have been in the stack on the counter. She didn't answer that night. She answered the next morning. He didn't open it. I've thought about that response a lot. Whether he didn't open it, or whether she saw the return address and set it aside, or whether it sat under a birthday invoice and a delivery receipt, because nobody in that house fully believed the money could actually stop. Conrad Whitmore came by my shop on a Wednesday morning. No appointment. He set a coffee on my counter and stood the way a man stands when he's deciding whether he has the right to say what he came to say. "I didn't know," he said, "about the money, about any of it." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Phoebe told us you had a work commitment. She's told us that before." "More than once?" He nodded slowly. "Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Wyatt's school play last spring." I pulled out my phone and showed him my call log, the dates, the absence of them. He sat down on my customer stool. He didn't try to explain or apologize for his daughter. He just sat there and looked at the wall for a long moment. "I've been wearing a hat," he said finally. "I didn't know it wasn't mine to wear." He stood up, said he'd see me at the anniversary dinner, said he'd handle where people sat. The dinner was a Saturday in October, cooler than expected. 60 people in a private room at the Swan Club, round tables, tall centerpieces. I walked in and looked for a seating card with my name and didn't find one. Then Conrad crossed the room and shook my hand in front of everybody and walked me to a chair at the center table right next to his own. I could feel the room adjust. 60 people recalculating something at the same time. Opal was at the head of the table with a laminated seating chart. I watched her look down at it, then at Conrad, then at me. She set it face down and didn't say a word. Troy was across the room with Phoebe. He'd seen me come in. He was watching his glass. Wyatt came around the edge of the table at a run. "Glen, how come you're up here?" "Because Conrad asked me." He frowned the way 9-year-olds frown when adults are being unnecessarily complicated. "But you're my..." Conrad leaned over. "He's your grandpa on your dad's side of the family, Wyatt. Same as I'm your grandpa on your mom's side. You've got 2. He put his hand on the back of my chair. "That's lucky. Some kids don't get one." Wyatt processed this for approximately 2 seconds. "Okay," and went to find the bread rolls. Opal stood up with the microphone 12 minutes early. She's very good with a room. She told the story of how she and Conrad met at a church potluck in 1989. She told it well, and people laughed in the right places. Then she made a turn I saw coming half a second before it arrived. 35 years has taught me that family is about intention," she said. "Not obligation. The people who show up because they want to." A small pause, her chin angled approximately toward the center left of the head table. True generosity doesn't ask for anything back. A few heads turned, maybe a dozen. Then Phoebe's older brother Devin, commercial real estate in Columbus, attends every Whitmore event I have never been invited to, stood up with his glass and said, "To 35 years of the people who matter. Because family is who shows up." He smiled. He'd had a few drinks, not who sends the check. It got a laugh, maybe a third of the room. The laugh moved around the table and hit a patch where nobody made a sound, and it died there. Troy was looking at his plate. Conrad was looking at his hands. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. I stood up. "Devin," I said, "would you mind if I borrowed that microphone?" He looked at Opal. Opal could not say no in front of 60 people. He handed it over. My voice held. I want to tell you it held, because I had worked on those 4 sentences for 9 days in my shop, reading them to the wall, crossing out words, starting over. 4 sentences is what I could say without my voice going somewhere. I didn't want it to go in that room. "My name is Glen Paulson. I'm Wyatt and Harper's grandfather on their father's side." Somebody's chair shifted. Nobody else moved. For the last 4 years, I've been covering the gap on Troy and Phoebe's mortgage, carrying Troy on my insurance policy, and funding both kids' college accounts. I turned slightly toward Conrad. "Last month I stopped the first 2. The college money is still running, and it's not going anywhere. That's for the kids." I set the microphone down on the tablecloth. I just needed somebody in this room to know. I sat down. 4 seconds. I counted them. The man at the far end. I found out later he coaches Wyatt's soccer team and teaches chemistry at the high school and is not easily impressed. Started clapping. Then the woman across from me. Then both side tables. It wasn't loud. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was 60 people quietly reaching a conclusion. That's worse. For them. Opal did not clap. She looked at the seating chart face down beside her plate. I left before the cake. I'd said what I came to say, and I'm not built for the part after. Phoebe caught me in the parking lot. No tears this time. That's how I knew we were finally having the actual conversation. "You humiliated us in front of everyone we know." I said my name and I said what's true. I put my keys in my hand. "If the true part embarrasses you, that's not something I did to you." She stood there with her arms around herself in the October air. And then she said the thing I hadn't prepared for. "I know what I did," she said. Quiet, like she hadn't meant to say it out loud. I waited. Wyatt started getting confused at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Who was which grandpa? Conrad kept saying your other grandfather and Wyatt kept looking at me, and she stopped. I told him to call you Glen because it was simpler, and then it was just what he did. Was Troy part of that decision? She looked at the ground. He didn't stop it. I stood there in the parking lot and thought about what I wanted to say, and what I had the right to say, and the space between those two things. "Phoebe, I'm not angry that you were afraid of your own family. I understand that better than you know. But I spent 4 years being quietly moved out of that house while I was still writing checks for it. And the whole time, all I needed was for somebody to make sure the number included me." She didn't say anything. "The kids' college money isn't going anywhere," I said. "You can call the credit union anytime. You don't need my permission." I took an envelope off my dashboard and handed it to her. Inside, the account number, both kids' names, the current balance, the credit union's phone number. Read them whatever's on that page. Troy called me 3 days later. He asked if we could talk. We did. An hour and 12 minutes, the longest call we'd had in 5 years. He cried twice. I didn't, but I came close. "Phoebe's family is like a tide," he said. I kept thinking if I just didn't make waves. "I know how that goes," I said. "But you let the tide wash me out and you didn't say anything." "I know. I'm not done being your father because of it. But I need you to understand the difference between not fighting and not caring. I was never not caring." He said he knew that. I think he did. We talked about the kids, about the holidays coming up, about an HVAC job I had in Marysville and a bid he was working on. 20 minutes of just talking about work the way we used to when he was my apprentice, and we rode to job sites together in the van and listened to the radio. It was the most real thing we'd done in years, and neither of us said that out loud. I wrote 4 things on a notepad and read them to him over the phone. 1. The college money stays with me. I keep putting in $800 a month. He can see the statements anytime. Nobody has to ask, and nobody has to report to me about it. 2. I take the kids every other Sunday. Not when it's convenient, not when nothing else has been planned. Every other Sunday is mine, and the kids know to expect it. 3. I'm on the family calendar before the reservation gets made. My name goes on the list before the venue gets called. I'm not doing another year of finding out from a Facebook post. 4. No money. Not for emergencies, not for loans, not for bridges or gaps or shortfalls. If something is genuinely falling apart, call me and we'll figure out what to do together. But the transfers are done. I am not a line item in anybody's budget anymore. Troy said that was fair. I told him fair wasn't the point. The point was that it was true, and I'd spent 4 years getting true and fair confused with each other. A year does a lot of quiet work. Phoebe's new space on 4th Street didn't last. She let the lease lapse in March, paid the penalty, and moved back to Elm Street in a smaller spot with better foot traffic. She runs it alone now. In April, she called to tell me the quarter had turned a profit for the first time. Not a big one, but real. She was crying on the phone, the way people cry when something they built is finally standing on its own weight. I told her congratulations and meant it completely. Conrad comes out to the reservoir with me on the first Saturday of most months. He brings terrible coffee and I've stopped saying anything about it. He doesn't talk much and neither do I, and it turns out that's enough. Opal and I see each other at the grocery on Maple Street. We nod. That's the arrangement. I've made my peace with it. Troy and Phoebe are in counseling. I don't know anything more than that, and I'm not supposed to. There are doors you don't stand in the frame of while someone else is walking through them. Phyllis says I've changed. She came over for dinner in July and watched me make pot roast and said I was different. You're present, she said. You used to be here, but you were always doing the math on how not to be a burden. Now you're just here. Jean used to say I ran about 10 years behind on everything emotional. She said it like a joke. She meant it as a fact. The 529 crossed $81,000 in September. I still put $800 in on the first of every month. The only people I've told that number to are Sal, Phyllis, and now you. Last month, Wyatt had a soccer tournament in Delaware, Ohio. One of those Saturday morning things. Phoebe texted me the time and field number 4 days before. I was there at 9. Wyatt came off the bench and ran straight over. Grandpa Glen. He said it easy and natural, the way you say something that has always been true. He grabbed my arm and pointed to where I should stand. You can see the goal better from over here. Harper was in the folding chair beside mine, eating crackers and drawing on the back of the tournament schedule. She looked up and said, "Hi, Grandpa," the same way she'd say hi to the sun, if the sun came by regularly enough. They didn't know anything had happened. They were just kids who were glad I was there. At halftime, Wyatt sat in the grass in front of my chair and talked for 4 minutes about a video game and a kid at school named Felix, who can't kick left-footed, and a book he was supposed to read that he hadn't started. He talked and I listened, and at some point he just leaned back against my legs the way he used to when he was small, and I put my hand on his shoulder and didn't say anything. Here's what I learned, finally, at 57. It's not the seat in the center of the table. Most of us don't want to be in the center. All anybody needs is to know there's a place, and that somebody put your name on it before you walked in the door. And if nobody's putting your name on that table, you're allowed to stop clearing it. Before you go, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is there, and tell me, if it were you, would you have kept the college fund running the whole time or shut it all the way down? Type A if you'd have kept it going. Type B if you'd have ended everything. I read every comment on these. Everyone. And if any part of this landed somewhere for you, there are more stories in the description below about people who figured out exactly when to hold on and when to let go. Thanks for sitting with me all the way to the end.